Howdy, this is Mackenzie Franklin from SideGame LLC here in Colorado Springs, Colorado, and today I'm bringing you the top 10 solo board games from 2021. This is our best of the year series, and super excited to dive into this list. Now, if you haven't already, please make sure you subscribe to the channel. It's the best way to help us grow, and we really appreciate the support. Now, that being said, I do want to talk about one honorable mention before we start this list, and this is pretty much going to be on the list forever because they keep on coming out with new editions of it. This is Clever Cubed. It's in the Sean Clever style of game. It's a roll and write game where on your turn you roll a bunch of dice, you pick one of those dice, and you're going to use it to play a mini game. Every die that's lower than that die you'll put out for the other players. So you have this choice every time you roll, whether you take a low number to get more options in the future, or do you take a high number to get better results on these mini games. You've got some great tense choices here, but this is really just a reskin of the exact same system with tweaks on the different mini games and how they work, a couple more additional bonuses here and there, but I do think that I need to make room on the list for other games because I could talk about this series of games. This gets played. It's a blast, one of my favorite styles with that simple choice but great satisfying gameplay of unlocking bonuses after bonuses. So that's my honorable mention, Clever Cubed. With that being said, let's jump into the list with number 10. Now, number 10 is going to go to the game Chronicles of Drunagor, Age of Darkness, a dungeon crawl style game that is exactly what you'd expect. You're a fantasy adventurer, have a class, have some level up, and you're going to be going from dungeon to dungeon, fighting monsters, getting treasure. That's really it. There's a narrative that ties the different missions together, but you're going to be going up and leveling up. But my favorite thing that makes this game stand out is the system of how to activate your characters. It is a cube management system where every turn you'll be able to allocate 2 of these cubes to different spots on your board, whether it be activating equipment or activating the abilities that you've learned throughout the process or triggering all sorts of abilities that you start with on your board. You have some passive abilities that'll function, summons that you can bring out, lots of different status effects. There's a lot of choices and a lot of options here, and I really like the way the characters are ran. Now, in addition to that, you'll be taking this character into an actually true solo experience, which is really nice having to control just one character. You'll be traversing through a dungeon on this 3D terrain, and you'll be revealing secrets through these cool door cards. So you'll be moving from space to space, interacting with the board, taking out monsters, and it's just a lot of fun. This is a great experience for this dungeon crawl style. That's my number 10, Chronicles of Drunagor, Age of Darkness. My number 9 is going to go to Railroad Ink. Challenge Lush Green Edition. This is a challenge version of the original Railroad Ink., which honestly didn't really impress me that much, wasn't one I was going back to, but this game does it amazingly. So the core of the game is very simple. You'll be rolling these dice, and you'll be using those dice to draw different railroad tracks onto your board. You're trying to connect as many exits as possible, while also trying to get the longest road, as well as the longest railroad track, because you get extra points for those. You also score for a bunch of other small things, but the big thing that this does to this game is twofold. So first off, it introduces these new tracks that really do change up the experience. You also have bonuses that are on the board that were not present in the original game. These allow you to duplicate things or get additional bonuses or extra points by putting specific routes onto them. But the biggest kicker here that really changes up the game are the goal system. Now, in the solo mode of this game, there's a timer on these goals, and you only have a certain amount of time to actually reach these, and I think that's really, really awesome. It's going to push you to make really absurd and strange plays that you normally wouldn't, and is going to really have you sitting down and thinking about your experience. Now, there's some amazing expansions for this game that we went ahead and got. There are specific solo boards and so many little dice that you can add to keep things fresh, and this is just a fantastic system. The solo is smooth and solid. The space it takes up is 9-0. We play this on a plane just over and over again. Oh, I really enjoy this experience. It's one that I can sit down and know I'm going to have a good time with, and I know that it's just going to be very relaxing and chill. So I really enjoy this one. That's my number 9, Railroad Ink. Challenge Lush Green Edition. Up next for number 8 is Burgle Bros 2, The Casino Cavers. This is a sequel to the original Burgle Bros by Fowers Games, and this game is absolutely wonderful. This is a heist game. You're going to be doing your best to dive into a casino and break into the safe. And the coolest thing about this is that they have these kind of scenario cards that you'll be playing that tell you what's inside the safe. And I really, really like this system. So you bust in, you see what you find, and it's going to determine what the second half of your game plays like, the escape from the casino. I love this concept. It makes it huge and cinematic and a lot of fun. I really like how this system works from moving from floor to floor. I like that they've reduced the amount of floors from the original Burgle Bros, and I think that the new guard system is very smooth and very clever. I really love how the new items work and the different characters, and the finale cards, I think, just bar none, are fantastic. This is a fantastic fantastic stealth puzzle style game. As you move around, you do need to control at least 2 characters, but I think that it's such a simple system to deal with a lot of variance with the way the tiles come out, the event cards. This is just a fantastic mode. I really enjoy this game, and it just makes for a fantastic experience. So that's my number 8, of Burgle Bros 2, The Casino Capers. My number 7 is going to go to the game Imperium Classics and Imperium Legends. They're both the same game essentially, just with different factions, but this is a civilization deck building game that does some things very, very interestingly. So the way it works is on your turn, you'll have 3 actions and then 5 exhaust actions, and you get to use those to play cards, add new cards to your deck, or to activate special abilities. And I really like this system. Now, this deck building system is really interesting because it has an emphasis on temporarily removing cards from your deck through what's called garrisoning, or permanently removing them through history or banishing. So there's lots of different ways to cull your deck, and that's a big focus of this game, because every time you cycle through your deck, you get to develop your civilization, and that's a really fascinating thing, because you may want to save cards for later, you may want to keep them for points, or there may be cards that you don't really want in your deck that you have to just store for a little while, and I really, really like this. The solo system for the game is also really, really well done. David Turchi and Nigel Buckle did a great job with setting up something that replicates people taking from the market, as well as playing action cards. You simply roll a die, assign it to one of these values, and then they just resolve their abilities for each of their cards. Each civilization that you play against is going to feel different, as well as the civilizations you play. You all have unique abilities and special effects, and my favorite part about this game actually is the way that development works. Once you develop your civilization enough, you're actually going to pick cards to add to your deck, and you'll be paying costs to develop your nation in the way that you see fit. I really like the variance here, the choice, and just the satisfying gameplay of it. It is just one that I enjoy playing again and again, diving into the different factions and just seeing how the different playstyles works. I really enjoy this one. That is Imperium Classics and Imperium Legends. Up next, we have number 6. This is Terraforming Mars, Ares Expedition, a wonderful engine building game of card evaluation, card management, and strategic play. Now, the way that this game works is a phase system. During the game, you'll have all these phase cards you'll be shuffling, and solo particularly, you'll be choosing one, but the enemy is going to choose a random one. And so you are trying to predict what that person's going to use based on what they've already played, and you're going to try to maximize the value that you can get from both of your phases. And I really like this. Some of the phases let you play cards, some of the phases let you activate the cards you already have, and some phases are going to activate all your production that you've kind of incorporated into your board. So you have to really time things out and understand what is going to be important now, and it's got a timer on it, because in the end of the solo game, you need to be completely done terraforming Mars. So you have to get the oceans out, you have to get the oxygen and the heat all the way up. And so you have to understand the value of cards at specific times. Is it going to be worth playing this card that generates heat if I'm only going to produce heat so much? I love this puzzle, and I love how you're constantly evaluating the cards that you get and deciding right then and there, is this something that I'm going to work towards, or should I sell it for the money so I can afford and play something else? This is such a solid system. I love how they've transported this flavor of Terraforming Mars, the original game, into this card fashion, and it's just so satisfying to play. I really love the solo system here and that prediction element that goes into it. Fantastic game. That's my number 6, Terraforming Mars, Ares Expedition. My number 5 is going to go to the game Final Girl, a horror-themed cinematic solo-only board game that is absolutely wonderful. You'll be taking the role of a final girl, and you'll be plugging and playing these feature film packs. So you'll pick a villain, you'll pick your final girl, and you'll pick a location, and then you take your action cards and you go to town. Your goal is to defeat this villain somehow, and you're going to be doing that through the use of items, through the use of clever play, and rescuing citizens. Now, my favorite parts about this game are actually the thematic nature of the item cards and the scenarios and the villains. I love how they've taken gameplay mechanisms and kind of distilled them into a way that makes sense in this horror setting. I also really love the action cards in this game. You have a lot of ways when you fail on these skill rolls. You'll be playing a card, trying to get stars, but usually if you fail, you're still able to do the actions that you're looking for at a price. So there's always a choice and a decision to make, and I really like that about this game. I also really like the flair and the thematics of the different items and the different abilities that you'll be taking, and I love that saving the different people that are around, the different citizens of the land or the city that you're trying to help out, saving them actually gives you benefits, and I really, really like that about this game. Do you go out of your way to rescue some people, or do you go for something that might help you out? Is it better to save the cheerleader, or is it better to go grab that item? Who knows, and it's up to you to make that decision. It's super thematic, super fun, a great time. That's Final Girl, my number 5. My number 4 is going to go to the game Assassin's Creed Brotherhood of Venice. This is another stealth-based game, kind of like Burgle Bros 2, but this is a large campaign based in the Assassin's Creed universe. You'll be taking a group of assassins and going on mission after mission, and every time you're going to be opening up a little envelope and something will happen. You'll add new event cards, new items, you'll get rewards at the end of each mission, and sometimes you'll be introduced to new game mechanisms that the game does a great job of teaching. Now, the system itself is really solid. You'll have an action phase where you'll take your assassins and move them on the board, and then the enemies will go, and the enemy phase is so smooth. You'll populate the board, move them around, and then if they detect you, man, they're going to fight. So you have this really cool push your luck almost system of trying to predict where these different characters are, and if they may detect you based on the dice they roll. But as soon as you're detected, all of them suddenly become way more alert and are going to be able to detect you easier in the future. So you're really pushing your luck as to when you go into specific dangerous situations, and I like that it exists in this game because you can totally choose to not, but it may take a little bit longer, and that might not be a leisure you have. Now, the other cool thing about this game is the way that the tiles work. Every time you set up a scenario, you just put out all of these tiles, and it's actually extremely easy because a lot of these tiles are all the same, just with different artwork, and that makes the setup of each scenario really, really simple and clean. I also really like how the action system works in this game. To do anything, it's usually 1 cube, and you got 3 cubes a turn. You can also save cubes, and you can use one of those cubes during the enemy phase, and you can also use them to activate items during your main phase or the enemy phase, which is so cool because this game really encourages you to use items, which is really fun because it encourages strategic and tactical play using items. Things like smoke grenades, parachutes, there's a lot of stuff to do, and the rate at which you get items means that you're feeling better about spending them, which is really nice in a game like this where normally you might just hoard and hold onto items. So I love the play here. I love how simplistic this system is, how it's introduced, the scenarios. I'm super impressed with this game. Amazing game. This is Assassin's Creed Brotherhood of Venice, my number 4. My number 3 is going to go to the game Hadrian's Wall. Now, this is the best roll and write period, I think. This is absolutely wonderful. This game has you acting as a Roman general, doing your best to fortify Hadrian's Wall, the defenses there against the Picts who are going to be here to try to ravage you. Now, while you're fortifying the wall, you're also going to be doing your best to develop all the cultures, the trade, everything else about your Roman city. There's a lot to love here, and my favorite parts about this game are actually the way that it's objective driven. At the start of every round, in addition to getting basic resources that are printed on cards, you'll also get 2 objective cards, and these objectives have more resources on them, but they also have objectives, and you're going to have to pick which of those that you use each round. So do you go for these specific resources because you just want that value, or do you go for this specific goal because it's something you're interested in working towards? And because you're playing this solo, you can give yourself a challenge by changing the difficulty rating or by going after specific objectives and goals. There's a lot to explore here in these giant sheets. Now, each of these sheets has so many different choices on it. You have these huge amount of boxes, and this game is just satisfying to a T. Really reminds me a lot of something like Gauntron Clever, where you'll be crossing off things and getting bonuses after bonuses, and it's just extremely satisfying to see these things evolve over time. You can give it so that you can get incomes, you can get special abilities, you can just put up a huge amount of defense for the incoming picks, because this game also has a tower defense element to it. It's a siege style game, so you're going to be preparing defenses and trying to minimize your chances of being attacked by these invaders that are going to be attacking every single round. There's so much to love here, so much satisfaction in the gameplay. You'll be checking boxes, getting resources, and then guiding your path with those objective cards. Oh my gosh, this game is so satisfying to play, and it's so smooth in that solo mode, and honestly, I actually haven't played this game multiplayer because I enjoy it so much in the solo setting. If you have not had a chance to play this one, please give it a try. Absolutely wonderful. Can't recommend it enough. That's my number 3, Hadrian's Wall. My number 2 goes to this gigantic campaign game. This is Sleeping Gods, my favorite campaign game of this year for sure. This is all about exploration in a extremely well done way. I'm not going to go into too crazy detail here. We have a whole video on the channel about the reasons that I love Sleeping Gods and the reasons that I rated it a 10 out of 10. But the exploration, the narrative, the atmosphere, the art, the writing, it's absolutely amazing. But one thing I really want to dive in here is the combat. Now, the combat mechanism is so well done. What you do is you lay out these monsters out side by side, and on your turn, you're going to decide which creature to attack. Now, when you attack, your wounds, you have to place them so that they're next to each other, and wherever you place, it really matters. You have these gems that will give you special abilities, but you also have effects that are tied to the different characters that could affect future attacks, or when they retaliate, whatever they attack back. So you can reduce their armor, or you can go straight for the kill and the health. There's a lot of trade-offs when it comes to the combat, a lot of risk, a lot of reward, and it's just super satisfying to come up with a plan during this combat and see it come to fruition. I love how the different enemies change. The difficulty levels, I think, are very appropriate when you are fighting these larger creatures, and I feel like it's always a challenge, but also something fun and exciting whenever you enter a combat. I love the creativity with the different abilities and different effects, and I love how you can even strategically hit things and spill damage over, so positioning matters in addition to the effects and the risks of combat. There's so much to love here, so much creativity in the world, and I haven't even gone into detail about the map or the different characters. Oh my gosh, I love the different item cards that you can pick up, and some of the items are actually weapons that you can use in combat or things that'll supplement that combat. So it feels really good to kind of stack all these abilities and effects. I could talk about this game forever, but to spare you it, please go check out that other video. It is an amazing game. So best campaign game of the year for sure. Incredible soundtrack, incredible narrative, incredible characters, and a world that I just want to spend all my time in. Amazing game. That is Sleeping Gods. But my number 10 is going to be the game that I dive into all the time for solo. This is Bullet Heart. Bullet Heart is a bullet hell style of game. Now, what does that even mean? Well, it's a puzzle style game where you're having all these bullets dropping into a grid in front of you. You play as a heroine, and it's your job to use these pattern cards to match up specific symbols in order to clear the bullets and remove them from your board. But in the solo mode, you have two options to play. You can go for a score attack to just try to learn your character and get kind of familiar with the patterns in the system, but the real core of the game and the thing that's going to keep you coming back and get this played a heck of a lot more than it should is the boss battle system. You're going to have a heroine board, and on the back of those heroine boards, you have the boss version of that heroine. And just like you, they have pattern cards that you're going to need to satisfy in order to prevent them from doing something terrible to you. In addition to these patterns, they also have their own special abilities that are going to affect you, and they're going to do their best to make sure that you get defeated before you defeat them back. They have shield levels that you're going to be trying to break through by clearing as many bullets as you can on your board. So you have a lot of strategy and tactics based on the different patterns, bullets that come out, and lots of tough decisions in such a short time frame. But that is something that's really going to challenge your thinking and just the way that you approach puzzles in general. My favorite part about this game are the ways the patterns work. I love how you are going to have a different puzzle every time you play this game with how the bullets are coming out, the different colors, and then the amount of variety in the heroines and the way that they play is completely different. For example, you have this character here who has the ability to compose, where they can actually flip over their bullets and make them wilds, which adds some very cool variety to the different patterns they'll be creating. Or this character, her hero form, actually has you adding the values on your different bullets. But when you flip them into their boss battle forms, even the bosses are all going to feel different. There's so much to love about this game, so many cool things that the different combinations between the heroines and the villains. It is so wonderful. This is a game that I cannot recommend enough. It just challenges the way you think, but also is extremely tense, tight, fun. It's just something that I see myself playing for a very, very long time. I love Bullet Heart, and it's a game that I cannot wait to play some more of. Amazing game. My number 1 solo board game of the year. I love it. This is Bullet Heart. And that's the list. Those are the top 10 solo board games of 2021. Were there any games that were missing on this list that you think should be here? What are your favorite games from 2021? What are your favorite solo board games in general? I'd love to hear your thoughts on the games I talk about or anything else you'd like to add. But thank you so much for watching, and thank you for being here. I hope that you had some great times gaming, whether it be solo or with others. But thank you so much for watching. SideGame Strong.